I found out in the locker room after the game against the Cowboys that we made the playoffs. You just told me that we won the division. The main thing that is so terribly difficult for NFL teams to do is down the stretch of the season, narrow your focus to the opponent and nothing else. I know you guys got a little sensitive about tell guys to F off. That wasn't the spirit of it. The spirit of it is occupying your mind with things that are outside what you can control. The ultimate outcome of the game will determine whatever, but every time you're spending doing this, you're not doing that.
Mike McDaniel, Dolphins head coach, getting his team ready for the latest installment of the game of the year. It seems like every week there's a game of the year, but now that the Ravens have beaten the 49ers, and the Ravens are coming home, and the Dolphins are coming to town, and the Dolphins have kind of defied the narrative that they can't beat good teams, although one of the narratives had to give on Sunday. It was either the Cowboys can't beat good teams on the road narrative or the Dolphins can't beat good teams anywhere narrative. The Dolphins stopped that at least for a week. Now they have to go to Baltimore where the Lions got destroyed, where the Seahawks got destroyed, and try to beat the Ravens. Number one scoring offense versus number one scoring defense. Could be a great game, and it's tucked within, Peter, 10 games at 1 o'clock Eastern on Sunday. The good news is 70% of the country will be getting Dolphins-Ravens.
I mean, one of the things that I love about this game is that it will be played in daylight. It will be played in a window that too often the networks have, not the networks really, but the NFL hasn't quite disregarded, but has taken a little bit too lightly. And Mike, I think what is interesting about Miami and Baltimore being at 1 o'clock is that the NFL reached out to the Ravens a few weeks ago and just said, hey, just curious what your sentiment would be about flexing to the night game in week 17 when clearly you would be coming back from a Monday night game 3,000 miles away. And I think there was some sentiment on the NFL's part that the Ravens had taken one of the, even though the Baltimore-San Francisco Christmas night game was great, there's a little bit of a hardship because clearly you're away from your family on the entirety of Christmas Eve. You're away from your family in the entirety of Christmas. And then you get home at 7:30 in the morning on the Tuesday after Christmas, and you got to get ready to play a very big game on very little sleep, the following week. And look, everything is hard in the NFL. I get it. But I think the NFL wanted to see if the Ravens, how they would feel about playing on Sunday night instead of Sunday day. And the answer came back from the Ravens that absolutely categorically they did not want the game moved. And that doesn't mean that the NFL wouldn't have moved it if the NFL thought that this was the best thing for the schedule. But I'm also reminded, Mike, in all those years, I have sat in and looked at the making of the schedule. It's one of those little football nerdy things that I get a kick out of every spring. Why is this game here? Why is that game here? And one of the things that has been drummed into me is that the NFL will move a dog game out of a Sunday night game. But the NFL won't move a meh game very often anyway out of Sunday night. And I think in this particular case, Packers-Vikings, great rivalry. Packers have a great national following. Everybody who has any interest in the Packers wants to watch Jordan Love and his development. And the fact is they're both still alive for the playoffs. And so it's not a dog game It's not the best game of the weekend, obviously, but it's not a dog game. And so the NFL basically said, okay, Baltimore, we're going to keep you at 1 o'clock. And I think the other part of that is really good is that we've forgotten often, Mike, when the no doubt absolute incredible game of the weekend is kicked off at 1 o'clock, whether it be sunny, cloudy, whatever it is, but in broad daylight, in Baltimore. And I found it interesting that the Ravens basically said, we don't want the Sunday night game. We want this game right where it is.
The other interesting wrinkle, though, and Barry Jackson, the Miami Herald, had an item about this earlier in the week. Why not move it to 4:25 Eastern? But apparently there's a belief that the Chiefs are more interesting as a team that has lost its way than they are as a team that pummels everyone. And even though Joe Burrow's long gone, because when the schedule came out, this was, hey, whoa, Chiefs-Bengals, whoa, New Year's Eve. Are you kidding me? 4:25 p.m. Eastern, Joe Burrow and Patrick Mahomes, we'll take that, absolutely. There's still a lot of intrigue with that game because of where the Chiefs have ended up in recent weeks. I mean, you look at what that game did. It was the highest-rated game of Christmas Day, the first one out of the gates, Raiders-Chiefs. People are fascinated by the Chiefs. You got the Taylor Swift angle. So that's another reason why it stays at 1 o'clock, because 4:25 would have made sense, but Bengals-Chiefs may do even better than Dolphins-Ravens would have done in that spot. But still, great game, hopefully. Dolphins would win the AFC East if they win the game. And if they lose and the Bills beat the Patriots, the Bills are 13-point favorites at home last time I checked against New England. Dolphins lose, Bills win. Next week, Bills at Dolphins is for the AFC East. It's amazing to think, for as high as the Dolphins are flying right now, it can still be wild card for the Miami Dolphins when it's all said and done. And it would be 6 seed maybe because the Browns are locked in as number 5. It would be 6 or 7 for the Dolphins depending upon how everything else works out.
I think the one other thing to realize, Mike, is that, look, as much as everybody says, even after seeing what's happened in the last few weeks, we have to look at the reality of where each team is. Excuse me. We have to look at the reality where each team is. And right now, the Cincinnati Bengals, even though they did not play well on either side of the ball against Pittsburgh, you're coming off 3 games in a row where they scored with Jake Browning 34, 34, and 27. So the Bengals, at least my impression of the Bengals right now is, first of all, Trey Hendrickson is having a fabulous year, and he's always hard to block, and he's made big impacts in the Kansas City-Cincinnati rivalry in the last couple of years. There's the fact that Kansas City's had trouble protecting Patrick Mahomes, and Cincinnati could take advantage of it. And I think the other thing is that right now, as I look at it, Mike, I'm not sure which offense is going to play better on Sunday. And as crazy as it sounds, the Jake Browning-led offense might play better than the Patrick Mahomes-led offense.
In Dolphins-Ravens, Jalen Waddle not available for Miami due to a high ankle sprain. Tyreek Hill didn't practice Wednesday, limited on Thursday. Chances are they're just trying to keep him healthy because he was able to play 9 catches for 99 yards against the Cowboys. He's still got an outside shot at 2,000 yards. He's going to have to go off each of the last 2 weeks. I think he needs to average like 170, 175 yards each of the last 2 games. Not impossible for him, but to put together back-to-back weeks when you've got that ankle issue, not something you'd want to expect to happen, but still a special season for him. Tua Tagovailoa last year helped the Dolphins to a thrilling win. They outscored the Ravens 28-3 in the fourth quarter of a Week 2 win over Baltimore. So there's a little bit of a history there, although early weeks of 2022 and latter weeks of 2023 may as well be 5 years apart. Still, there's something there, and there's a lot on the line. Very impactful game. 1 seed in play if the Ravens win. AFC East championship for the Dolphins if they win. And like we said earlier with MVP, the Lamar Jackson presumption goes out the window. if the Dolphins go in there and beat the Ravens on Sunday.
And I think, Mike, the one interesting thing about this game from a competitive standpoint is that I think in recent weeks we've seen Miami. It's always true in the NFL. I think the last time I saw that it wasn't true is that you look at really the great teams and the transcendent offenses or defenses, and eventually they come back down to earth. And again, probably the one in very recent history, even though it's 22 years old, is the greatest show on turf. That offense had a 3 or 4 year run of incredible play. But you look at the Dolphins, and and again, I almost don't count the Jets games. It's kind of silly, but they had the game where they really struggled against Tennessee, and Tennessee came back and beat them. And you had the game against Dallas where they played well, but it was an absolute grinded out affair. And I think if I am Mike McDaniel, I want my offense. One of the things I would really like to see against Baltimore is I want my offense to go up and down the field 2 or 3 times in this game. You're not going to do it every game, okay? But I think to prove to your own team that you can dominate against the best the NFL has to offer, I would like to see my offense, even without Jalen Waddle. I think they have enough weapons. I mean, most underrated great player this year, I think, has been Raheem Mostert. With, it's totally out of control. The guy's got 21 touchdowns, and no one really talks about him all that much. Imagine a 1,000-yard rusher with 21 touchdowns. And when you talk about the great players on his team, you always talk about Tua, Tyreek, and whoever else. But we need to talk about Raheem Mostert, and he's going to need to have an impact on this game in downtown Baltimore on Sunday.
Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.